What would the Eagles' defense look like without C.J. Gardner-Johnson in a game against this high-powered Saints offense? We'll talk about that and much more coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Football Friday. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, and the professor himself, Deniz Selman, in the middle. We've got lots to talk about. News on the injury front for the Eagles as they prepare for what feels like a very big game all of a sudden in Week 3. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Deniz, what he's charted about the offense and the defense, maybe some swooper leftovers. All good stuff, but how's everybody doing? Zach, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Had a wonderful evening last night.
Thank you. Are we going to address what's on your head? Are we going to acknowledge this? Because I need to know if
I don't know what you're talking about.
If I'm operating throughout the shit, is this bit going on for the next hour? I do want to tell the audience, I see Bo in person today, and I mentioned to Bo, I just want to clarify yesterday what I was saying. And Bo's like, don't worry about it. And then right before the show, you pull on the wig. So
what are you talking about?
Yeah, great hair.
I got a haircut. This is my new.
That's your new look. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell your barber. We got work on the fade. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Had a wonderful evening last night.
Thank you.
The Zach Berman book event. Mm-hmm. Got to talk to a bunch of Bermans. Had a wonderful time. What a turnout.
Thank you.
We're all very proud of you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What an accomplishment. We're going to talk a little bit more about next week. I will say a bit of scuttlebutt in the audience from some people I talked to. Some people not thrilled about their lack of mention in the book. I just want you to know that that's out there.
Who could that be?
That's all I'm saying.
Some people are not thrilled about the lack of mention.
Yeah, like they didn't get enough word time in the book that they thought that they deserved. Just saying.
I have no idea who that could be.
Okay, well, you got a lot of constituents in the.
I'm trying.
family.
There was 87,000 words. I covered 25 years of the Eagles. I mean, look, if I'll tell you this: if Asante Samuel was there, if Trent Cole was there, they would have a valid complaint. In the epilogue, I wrote about how I wish there were. I wrote about more players during this time, and I think Asante Samuel and Trent Cole, and then John Runyon and Trey Thomas are 4 players who I should have highlighted more than I did. Than I did in the book.
Well, it's a wonderful event. Thanks to Emily for putting it on. I got to see all the kids out there, too. It was fantastic. I got to meet your grandfather.
He's a great man. I appreciate that.
Worthy of the dedication. Fantastic. Deniz, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. Doing well. Zach, you have a thing tonight, too, right?
Yes, Barnes & Noble tonight. I appreciate that.
Good pitch.
On 17th and Chestnut. This is an early release event. I'll be with Ray Didinger, who literally wrote the encyclopedia on the Eagles. Well, we're having a conversation. We'll take questions from the audience, and then I will sign books. And the book is on sale officially on Tuesday.
And what time is the thing tonight?
6 o'clock. Thank you.
And where can people buy the book?
Anywhere books are sold. Starting on Tuesday. But if you pre-order, I think if you went to Amazon,
we want those pre-orders. That's what we want.
Yeah,
right?
if you pre-order it on Amazon, then it'll come to you on Tuesday. But I think, similar to how we like when you watch our show on YouTube, because in your algorithm, it'll come up. I think Amazon, if there's like a pre-order, it helps the
you
algorithm.
want those pre-orders.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see
3 more days to get those pre-orders in.
I see the Diddy walking around the neighborhood a lot, and it always makes me happy.
He's the man.
Always makes me.
Now, how does he feel in today's current climate of being called the Diddy?
I'm not sure. I don't call him that myself, but the few times I've talked to him, he's been super nice. But I usually don't even talk to him. I just kind of smile as I see him holding a newspaper, walking down the block. It's
Yellow
great.
notepad in
You
hand.
don't attack him like you did Isaac Sayamalo at Park that one time?
No.
It's a good reference.
Hey, both starting guards were there.
Hey, both starting
Incredible opportunity there.
All right. There is news from the complex. Zach, you were there for practice today. Who was not there for practice today?
CJ Gardner-Johnson was not present at practice. Now, he missed yesterday's practice. He had a foot injury. I guess Nick Sirianni about it today. Nick said it was a tweak. It occurred yesterday. I imagine during walkthrough yesterday because he was not on the practice field when we were out there at practice. So it did not occur at practice. But, foot injury, not out there today. This is an interesting one to watch. We'll get the report, the final injury report, status report a little later today. I'm curious to see what he's designated as because this is he's obviously a starting safety, important part of the team. Also, a little interesting nugget. He's missed each game he's played against the Saints, the two places that he's gone to. Philly in 2022 and then Detroit last year.
Okay.
And so, this would have been his third time playing against his former team. And I know he was, jacked up to play against his former team. So we'll see what his status is.
I mean, it feels if he's not practicing today, he didn't practice yesterday. It feels unlikely he's going to play, right?
One would think, but it depends.
You're not going to be shot if you get this wrong. This is
I know. I don't want to say. I don't want to say he's going to play.
You've been covering this league for a long time. Yes. It seems unlikely at this point that
typically,
he would play.
If you're not out there on Friday, then you don't play. But again, this is not like an injury that occurred in the game. It is actually. I remarked to you guys in the green room or the office, however we want to call it, that Eagles have had they've had 3 injuries now occur during practice. They've been relatively healthy in games. It's never like someone goes down, season-ending injury in game. But in practice, A.J. Brown last week, Johnny Wilson last week, and now C.J. Gardner-Johnson today. So we're talking about practice, right? Not a game.
What a reference.
Not a game. Yes.
What a Philly guy.
It's a Ted Lasso reference.
Nice. Okay, so.
I got Julia to laugh. That's my goal. Yes.
Let's unpack this a little bit. Okay. If C.J. Gardner-Johnson doesn't play, their options are Tristan McCollum, Avonte Maddox, and then probably Cooper DeJean at safety, or at nickel, rather. Now, this is a game, Deniz, where if the Saints do what they've been doing the first 2 weeks, you don't need to be a nickel quite as much, right? So maybe that changes the dynamic. But what would be your guess? And also, tell us about what was different about the safeties last week.
Yeah, so quick, about the Saints. Saints have been 9% 11 personnel on first down, which is by far the lowest.
It's like they're playing in a different
just don't play
decade.
11 personnel, right? 22% overall, which is dead last by a mile. The safeties last week, and I was talking about this. We were talking about this with Fran after training camp. Unlike Desai and Gannon, Fangio has not been doing left safety, right safety.
Right.
So that, left safety, right safety, the advantage is you don't have to worry about where you're lining up. You're always on the same side. You work with the same corner, et cetera. Fangio didn't do that throughout camp, and he didn't do that in either of the first 2 games. But the interesting thing is he switched the roles of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship from week 1 to week 2. So throughout training camp, from what I understand, and in week 1, it was CJ GJ at the boundary and Reed to the field. Now, why that matters is the boundary safety is more likely to end up rotating down to the box, right? Because they do this safety rotation where you rotate away from the nickel and you end up covering either a slot receiver or you're in the box and fitting the run. The field safety is more likely to end up in the post. So throughout camp and also in Brazil, it was Reed in the post and CJ GJ going down to the box. Last week against Atlanta, on all but 2 or 3 snaps, it was the exact opposite. It was the exact opposite. And on the ones where it was, the exceptions were ones where there was like a blitz exchange and you could it was actually kind of a tell. Hopefully they don't keep doing the same thing because it was clear pre-snap there was going to be an exchange blitz. Anyway, and if I could see that, obviously the Saints can see that and all that. So, but the reason that I found this interesting is because something happened in Brazil that made Fangio switch that. I don't know if it was that he didn't like the way CJ GJ was fitting the run when he was rotating down to the box or whatever, but the post safety ends up kind of getting less usage in a sense, right? And so you're giving Reed a bigger responsibility, and he was the one who ended up having to cover Ray McLeod on that 4th and 4 where he got beat. And conventional thinking would say that CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's been one of the best nickel corners in the league for a big part of his career, would be better in that role. Not that he's been that good in coverage this year, but that adds a little twist to if he's out, who gets which role? Do they just do left and right? Like, what happens if it's Avonte Maddox playing? I would imagine Reed would stay the one who's down in the box, and Maddox would be in the post.
Right. That's what you would want. Yeah.
Though that boundary safety role is more similar to the nickel corner role.
Right.
So if you think of Maddox's role not changing too much,
right.
Eagles do play cover 3 a lot. They play cover 3 sky a lot, which is the rotation I'm discussing now. So if you don't want Maddox's role to change too much, you might want to switch Reed back to the post.
And just, the 2 snaps we've seen from Tristan McCollum in the regular season.
Oh my goodness!
Like it's hard to think that that's going to work out against this Saints offense that is so good at misdirection.
Yeah, just one snap from him that wasn't like the prevent at the end, and he ran into the guy. Almost killed Zach Bond. So for the health of the linebackers, No, I would imagine it would be. I would be shocked if McCollum is out there the whole game.
It's interesting if you think about our conversations before the season, injury, positions where they can really not afford to lose somebody. We talk about wide receiver. Now they go out and they get Dotson, but that strikes right away. We talk about safety, how they didn't address safety depth. We'll see what happens on Sunday, but that strikes pretty early.
We talked about it because both C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Reed Blankenship have long histories of injury.
Exactly.
And, Sidney Brown is, in theory, the guy who's there, but you got to wait for him to come off PUP. So, and then they carry Bradbury and McCollum, and I don't know that that's going to look good either way. And they've lost Dylan McMahon, and that's why the season's going to go down the tubes. What part of yesterday's episode, Zach, was toughest for you to live with? Was it the putting the company in jeopardy with your blue language?
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Or was it the loss of turkeys?
Oh yeah, why'd you spend all your turkeys, Zach? Normally you're so frugal with them.
I thought, okay. I didn't listen to the part where you can borrow for next week. And then I thought I had more turkeys than Bo. At the time, I was getting a text from someone within the NFL who I was corresponding with. And I figured I had the most turkeys. So when I heard the second person gets it, I'm like, so if you watch it back, I literally say, oh, I love this. This is easy, Julia. And so I sent Julia, I knew I had 11 turkeys. I sent Julia my turkeys right away. And so I thought, I was sitting back, sitting pretty. And when I heard 40, first I was like, what? And then when you said you can borrow from next week,
Quick game theory lesson.
It wasn't
it's an equal pay auction, which is a very rare kind of auction, which means everyone's paying the same amount. Because everyone's paying the same amount and you're all competing with each other, the goal should be to win the item. You just want to win the item. The cost almost doesn't matter. And so, so Bo got that right. And it sounds like, you didn't have 40 to bid.
I thought I had the most turkeys. Right. So I said 11 turkeys because I thought that was the most turkeys.
It would have been funnier if you did have the most turkeys.
Yes.
Because then you still would have lost. Yeah.
So that's the part that I own that. I wear that. The part of yesterday's episode that bothered me was I definitely was not trying to insult you in any way, shape, or form. I was trying to compliment Fran, literally complimenting Fran. And then that turned into
the company may have to fold after that S-bomb you dropped.
No, come on. No, but I should have been more judicious with my language. That's for sure.
It's a gift that's going to keep on giving because now we all have that video.
That's fine. We did get a memo last month about language on the show, and I have not been an offender of it. There are other people, other very talented content creators at this company who are greater offenders than me of that. So it struck me as odd that I was the one who
I'm going to be up all night every Thursday making sure to induce such language again.
I got to make sure. You know what I got to do next time? I got to turn. So the problem is I'm not in studio, so I'm there. So I get the text come up on my computer. I need to ignore. I need to put the status as ignore and no text come up during Swooper, so I can listen to every rule because that.
In other words, you need to do the job.
Okay.
Bo made sure I sat between them today. All
right, let's talk about the rest of this side of the matchup, Deniz.
Yeah.
A matchup that certainly looks dire from an Eagles perspective. It's only been 2 weeks, but through 2 weeks, this is the best offensive football against one of the worst defenses in football.
Yeah, I think Aaron Schatz tweeted that the Saints are the fourth best offense in history or something, like through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They've been unbelievably efficient.
And by the way, this whole entire conversation, this whole episode, presented by Bet365, our dear friends.
They scored touchdowns on their first 6 drives last week against Dallas. Watching the film, they just looked ridiculous. They're first in DVOA, first in EPA per play, first in series conversion rate, first in success rate. Like they're just first in everything. Obviously, small sample size. It's 2 games. One of them was against Carolina. But yeah, I mean they've looked really good. Meanwhile, the Eagles' defense is 31st by DVOA through 2 weeks, 30th in EPA per drive, 29th in points per drive, 26th in series conversion rate allowed, bottom 7 in those categories, which I would say are the 4 categories I look at the most. 25th against the pass, 32nd against the run. Again, 2-game sample, but the defense is, as it was last year, the main problem with this team. And bringing in Vic Fangio wasn't ever going to fix the problem right away, but I was hoping for a little bit better than 31st at this point.
you were.
Yeah.
Is your concern personnel?
Well, that's the thing. It's so hard to tell. I understand historically these Fangio defenses have been hard to learn for the players, right? Like you don't immediately get it. You don't immediately start being good. Miami got better, throughout the year last year, things like that. Like, and this has happened at other stops he's been at as well. But the thing is, the coverage, which is the part that you would think would be harder to learn with the safety rotations and the matching routes and zone coverage and all the things that Fangio does, the coverage has looked really good.
Why is it the defensive line that takes time?
That's the thing. Like I made fun of Zach Robinson, the Atlanta offensive coordinator, for the play calling against Pittsburgh. I thought they had a really stale passing game and really boring offense. It wasn't really like that in the last game. They ran some interesting route combinations. They used stacks and bunches and late motion to change who the number 1 receiver is. All kinds of things to kind of stress the Eagles' coverage rules. And I thought the Eagles did great. Sure. I mean, like they did a great job passing off routes, great job matching to zones, matching in the zone match system. I just thought the issue was the stopping the run and the pass rush. And those 2 things you would think are the least related to who the defensive coordinator is and what the scheme is. And Atlanta's run game was not interesting at all. Bo Allen, the great Bo Allen, had a great breakdown of this on YouTube where he broke down the 12 times in the game that the Falcons ran outside zone to the open side, meaning the side where the tight end is not. And they did that 12 times for 86 yards. That's 7.2 yards per carry. They ran it to the strong side 3 times for 33 yards. That's 11 yards per carry. That's 15 times they ran outside zone in the game. I mean, this is not particularly, it's not like they're pulling guys or running interesting run schemes. They weren't. And, Brian Baldinger had a thing on the radio where he talked about he didn't like the way the defensive line was aligning. So that is a little bit of a scheme thing. Okay. He thought they were making it way too easy for the guards to climb to the linebackers. We saw Zach Bond getting cut by the right guard over and over again, which is not something you see a lot.
Well, quick note there, because I know you listened to Vic Fangio this week. I don't know if the audience listened to the press conference. Vic Fangio said Zach Bond hadn't been exposed to that in the past, and that they'll be better prepared for that this week. He'll know it, and they'll have a better plan. Nick Sirianni was asked today kind of about that. And he said, if he comes up, if he plays in the preseason, that kind of thing. But there's only so much you can do to prepare for it. But they have discussed those kind of blocks.
Yeah. Well, it's good that they've discussed it.
Yes.
There was maybe one snap like late in the game where Zach Bond finally was able to evade that block and make a play. I mean, it didn't get better.
Now, to be fair, it is that is rare. Most offensive lines are not doing that.
Well, yeah, but you shouldn't have a guard should not be getting that clean a release to the linebacker there. Look, the Saints are going to run outside zone a lot as well. They do. The Clint Kubiak system is very much from the Shanahan McVay school, where they're going to run a lot of outside zone and then play action off of it. And Fangio knows that, and he was asked about it at the presser, and he kind of confirmed that. So what's the answer, right? Well, one major difference, of course, between Atlanta and the Saints is that Atlanta ran 11 personnel on literally every snap of the game. Mm-hmm. The 2 snaps they didn't, according to the services, were both kneel downs at the end of the game. So they ran 11 personnel on every single play. And the Eagles matched that with nickel, which typically means a 4-man front. So the question is, what is the answer? And one of the things, and we talked about this so much last year, and I'm kind of getting tired of this, it's like, if you can't stop it with the 4-man front, you have to do the 5-man front. I don't know. I mean, is that really the answer to just go to the 5-man front? Is that suddenly gonna fix the problem? Fangio did use base twice against the Saints, even though it was nickel, both on first downs. Atlanta threw both times, and one of them was the 41-yard touchdown, where Fangio just decided, hey, I haven't used base and I haven't blitzed. Yeah. Like, let me do both on the same play. I ran a 0 blitz out of base personnel, and they couldn't cover the post with CJ there. The other way to make it an odd front is to have Zach Bond on the edge and then have one of the defensive ends tuck inside. He did that a lot against the Packers. Didn't do it that much in this game. He only did it twice the entire game. One of them was an outside zone run for 4 yards, and they passed on the other one. So it's not like Fangio thought in game that the 4-man rush, 4-man fronts were the issue, right? So what does he think is the issue? Bryce Huff. We've seen all these clips of Bryce Huff just looking terrible against the run. One thing about Bryce Huff, he played on 20 of the first 33 early down snaps in the game. Didn't play on any of the last 10. So there was like a quiet benching of Bryce Huff during the game. So if you look at the things like what did Fangio do during the game to change things, he didn't really change the alignments or the scheme or the personnel, but he did stop playing Bryce Huff on early downs. I mean, again, 20 of 33 to start, and then none of the last 10, and that 10 spans multiple drives. So it's not like it was just one drive.
And
that
was an adjustment from the previous week when Bryce Huff didn't play early downs really at all. You know, well, he played 8. He
ended up playing around the same percentage of early downs total in both games. I mean, he was the lowest early down snap count of any of the edge rushers in both games.
I have an idea. Okay, if you're the Eagles trying to figure out how to fix the run defense on the edge, you have seen Thomas Booker look good in 8 snaps.
Yeah.
Why don't we move Milton Williams to the edge on early downs?
Interesting.
And then there's enough defensive tackle depth to get through without having Milton play on early downs inside. Maybe that is a way to solve things.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, Fangio was asked in his presser about whether there would be changes, and he said there won't be any wholesale changes. That sounds like almost a wholesale change. Milton Williams is not playing nearly as much as I thought he would. I mean, he's not the main second D tackle on pass rush downs. Yeah, it's still Ojimo. Yeah. And then they're also doing a dime package where they only have one tackle on the field. And that's been Jalen Carter. And that's the next guy I want to get to, by the way. We can talk all about, I mean, you guys talked so much about Bryce Huff already. I mean, him getting blocked by Kyle Pitts one-on-one. Oh, I mean, just embarrassing. I mean, Kyle Pitts, who, frankly, I mean, no matter what you say about how great whatever you think he is, Zach, a football player without a position, blocking is not something that even Zach would say that Kyle Pitts majors in. And for him to be...
I don't know why you want Kyle Pitts blocking.
I'm sure he
was a 1,000-yard receiver as a rookie.
Yeah, he had a huge impact on the game on Monday. They have one catch or whatever. So, look, I think, like if Fangio said, Huff is still learning how to play the total game and working hard at it. It doesn't look like he's working hard during the game. Now sometimes...
I thought you didn't want to talk about Bryce Huff anymore.
I'm trying to convince myself not to. But, look, I mean, he's said so many weird things this week. The things he's saying about, like, how he thinks it's the guy's neck. He's not used to working with the guys next to him and all that. I frankly wonder if what he means by that is, hey, when I'm not the third best edge rusher on the team, I'm not able to get cleanup sacks and cleanup pressures like he was last year.
Well said.
There's a reason the Jets let him go, despite
you see
being
Will
the
McDonald,
age
you
that
see
he is.
why. Yeah,
and it shouldn't be that surprising that the third best edge rusher on the Jets, shouldn't be put in a role where he's supposed to be your best pass rusher. So anyway, enough about Huff. Sorry.
No, I said that going back to the spring. If my frame of reference is the Eagles. And the last time the Eagles let a good edge rusher leave was Derek Burgess, right? And you're looking at 20-plus years ago. Anytime if the Jets let Bryce Huff go, I mean, they could have paid to keep him. They had the Eagles went past the number that the Jets had for him.
Right.
Okay. I think the defense, the floor is maybe lower than we even thought possible.
Look, somebody on the show said that the defensive roster is worse this year. Got a lot of hate tweets for it. But, I mean, come on, man. Like, you can't just lose Fletcher Cox and Hassan Reddick and expect your defensive line, replacing those guys with essentially nobody, to suddenly be as good.
And speaking of flooring.
Oh, good job.
Deniz. Let's talk about Empire Today. Because with Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring. So, of course, they have copycats, but they can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, speed, and all that good stuff. So what they're going to do, they're going to try to undercut. They're going to advertise low-quality products that the good folks at Empire Today simply don't believe in, and they wouldn't even carry. Empire Today won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. It would be like building a Super Bowl touted roster with terrible defensive personnel. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a monster whammy discount. $350 off when you use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
I want to tell you about Rite Aid. This is the time of year when some of us tend to get sick. And when that happens, you need good pharmacy services. With Rite Aid and a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescriptions. You can schedule a vaccine. You can get personalized care recommendations. You can sign up for prescription notifications. And all you need to do to get started is a prescription at Rite Aid. Get started at riteaid.com/mypharmacy. You don't want to stress about your prescriptions. They can refill them automatically. You can get your prescriptions at the same time with one-trip refills. And what I like is that you can manage those prescriptions on the mobile app. Transfer or refill the prescription, set up reminders, enroll in notifications, and just download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid, caring pharmacists ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medicines, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
All right, we have a lot to get to. We want to get to the offense. We want to get to the Nick Sirianni big picture conversation. But quickly, let's talk a little bit about Jalen Carter.
Excellent job, by the way, by Bo to show how you can perform well even if your teammates are messing up. I mean, that segue, despite my rude interruption, just delivered beautifully. I mean, Bryce Huff can learn from that. Jalen Carter, stock down this week. I mean, he doesn't start the game because he was late to a meeting, whatever. We knew there were going to be things like that with Jalen Carter.
Zach, what was the word from the locker room?
Yeah, Jalen Carter. So for full disclosure, I'm here today. I'm not in the locker room. Jalen Carter confirmed.
In case you couldn't tell, this isn't the locker room.
In
case you thought there was another reason that Zach needed to feel a little bit uneasy today.
He was late for a team meeting. He said the alarm did not go off. Said it was the first time that he's been late to something. That's according to my former colleague, Jeff McClain. And asked about his play so far this season. Jalen Carter called it, quote, trash. Said he needs to play better.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really surprising on the film, and I know a lot of people have done breakdowns of this, but they're sliding protection away from him the whole game, which is not what we expected it to happen. I mean, they had their right guard, Lindstrom, who's a good right guard, but he's not like the best right guard in football or anything, and he was stoning him the whole game. And then Milton Williams gets a rare chance, also one-on-one against him, beats him beautifully one-on-one, gets a sack, the only sack of the night. So not a great game for him. He wasn't good against the run either. He was getting pushed off his spot a little bit too easily. And so if that Fangio, I'm assuming it's Fangio making that decision, if that benching him for the first drive was supposed to light a fire, it didn't seem to do so.
I imagine that came from Sirianni.
Really?
Benching? Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
You think that's a Fangio decision?
I do.
Wow.
I don't think Fangio would let Sirianni bench.
Yeah, you think that?
Yeah, I think it has to come from Nick.
Interesting.
Well, I think Nick is probably the one who has to deliver the message. But do you think that if Nick if Fangio wanted Jalen Carter to play anyway, and Nick was like, no, he's got a bench, you think?
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen.
I think Nick would say, these are the rules. You're late to a meeting, you get benched.
Carter still did play 46 of the 61 snaps in the game. So he played almost every snap after that initial benching for what it's worth.
Look, I've pushed back probably more than most on the idea of what does Nick do here? Okay, I talk about what he does behind the scenes and the game management and the managing the locker room and things like that. If he's not handing out discipline,
but I agree that he would be the one who's handing it out, who's delivering the message. But I don't think it's his decision.
If he's not deciding discipline, then it's that would be one of the things that falls under the purview of the CEO, head coach.
Yeah, one would think.
One would think that's true. That would surprise me that would really surprise me if it didn't come from him.
Quick thing about the Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is the one guy who's out there for both early downs and late downs on this defensive line. In terms of whether it's the pass rush or stopping the run, that's the issue. Let me just remind everybody that last year we made a big deal about how bad the pass rush was on third down. And that poor pass rush resulted in the Eagles having one of the worst third down conversion rates allowed in league history. Like it was historically bad. This year, it's been the opposite. Last year, on this show, I talked a lot about the Eagles are like third best in the league at getting to third down, and then historically bad on third down. This year, it's been the opposite. The Eagles are third in third down conversion rate allowed. Atlanta was 1 for 8 on third downs before that final drive. 3 of those stops were on 3rd and 4, by the way, so it's not like they were all third and long either. It's been the opposite problem this year. The Eagles are worst in the league, 32nd in the league at getting to third down. They're only getting to third down on 42% of the drives, 58% conversion rate before third down. Atlanta got 19 of their 22 first down conversions on early downs. So that's 70% of the time they're getting 19 times over 70% of their total series that they got first down before third down. And so the Eagles have not been giving their pass rush that many chances. I know a lot's been made of the last drive. So last drive, there were 6 obvious pass situations, and they converted 4 of them. But that's a pretty small sample. I mean, you're not giving yourself the opportunity throughout the game to get into those pass rush situations. So, and Huff's not out there on a lot of those early downs. So,
well, that does track with, I heard from someone this week who was saying everyone's talking about how bad the defense is, but the first game, the offense put them in all these uncomfortable positions. They held Green Bay in the red zone. Last game, they kept Atlanta to 15 points, and I think that tracks with what you're saying is that they've been good third down and red zone, and that if you look elsewhere, they've been really bad.
Yes, their lofty ranking of 31st in the league is buoyed by unsustainable success in little situations.
Yeah, and talking about the number of points in this last game. I mean, there were only 8 drives. So I mean, Zach, we've been through this before. Like, you can't just look at the total points and say, oh, they only allowed 22 points. That's on 8 drives.
Yeah.
If you allow points at that rate all season, you would be ranked 32nd in points per drive allowed. So that's not actually good. And there are some games where there are 12 drives and some games where there are 8 drives, and there's a big difference in giving up 22.
I'm not defending them. I'm conveying what's been conveyed.
Well, we know the defense stinks so far. They have a chance to look better this week. But let's dive a little bit into the Sirianni of this, because we're talking about who's manning out the punishment. Obviously, we're trying to move on, but we're all still stuck in thinking about that 4th down decision to kick the field goal. He talked about it on Wednesday. He didn't really talk about it today, but I think we're all still thinking about it. Deniz, I'm sure that you have more thoughts, and especially the way that he described his process for going through these, historical examples that actually don't track with what the situation was.
Yeah, I mean, I it was a beautiful day on Wednesday. I got myself a nice burrito from Mexicali out in West Philly. Shout out to them.
For you. Like a
I sat down and I was like, what should I do during lunch? And I was like, I'll watch the Sirianni presser. And so I turned on the Sirianni presser. Man, it's hard. You guys talked about it on the show at length. I talked about it on Tuesday as well, about why going forward is better
for the next 4 months.
You do want to, but we have to talk
between
Bo
this
out
and
of
Dylan McMahon,
making the full hour be. Look, the 2 huge flaws in the process that Nick Sirianni kind of
outlined,
like basically revealed, and he did not have to reveal his process, and he should not have revealed his process. I mean, it's like sometimes like you can credit him for his honesty, but this is the kind of honesty that can get you fired, right? Like, I mean, this is the kind of thing where it's like, honestly, just if this is how you did it, don't tell me this is how you did it. You know what I mean? And there are 2 huge flaws in this process. He for those of you who didn't listen or whatever, he said that he asked the analytics team to pull up all of the situations late in the game where teams were up by 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and then ask what they chose to do in those 4th down situations, and then what happened as a result of what they did. 2 huge flaws in this process. Okay, one of them, which is actually the more minor flaw, is that being up 3 is very different than being up
different.
1, 2, 4, or 5.
It's completely
you cannot
different.
group those together. It's ridiculous. He even said in the press conference, he said, being up 6, anyone's going to kick the field goal. That's why I ruled out 6. Great job, Nick. Like, you ruled out 6. What about 1, 2, 4, and 5? Like the other 4 numbers that you grouped in with 3 that also have nothing to do with 3. I mean, 1 and 2, you don't have a field goal lead. A field goal can beat you, so it's different. 4 and 5 gives you a touchdown lead,
Exactly.
so it's different. 3 is the one number where
It's the only one.
It's the only one where it is not smaller than 3 and also not bigger than 3. It's the only number like that. It's 3. And so the thing with 3 is when you kick a field goal, you're still not up by a touchdown. And therefore it's completely different. Like what on earth? How can you group those together?
Yes.
Next, he goes through and he's like, the 2010 Texans against the Raiders, like they went for it and they lost. Who the fuck cares about that? Like seriously, like that is so ridiculous. He's leaning into this anecdotal evidence from random games. Like who cares if other teams went for it or they didn't go for it, and who cares what happened like as a result? And
then even that the end point of it is, well, most of them didn't go for it.
Oh my God.
As if that's what the goal is.
And
the goal is to chase the group thing.
Yes, that is the thing. Like instead, and he's asking the analytics department the wrong question, as I've made clear. Here's the thing, right? Instead of finding all the instances when coaches had to make that decision, look at all the instances where teams were up by 3 with the other team at the 10-yard line versus up by 6 with the other team at the 30-yard line. Those are the two things you have to look at. It shouldn't matter how he got there. You could have thrown an interception to the 10-yard line when you're up by 3. You should be looking at that case.
Yeah.
Does that mean you should throw an interception? No. It doesn't matter how you got to that situation. It just matters what the situation is. And so going through the situation by focusing on other teams' coaches' decisions, and we all remember, how did he defend the punt in the Super Bowl?
Yes.
He said 32 out of 32 NFL head coaches would have punted there. I don't disagree, but all 32 would have been wrong. And the thing is, like, we all have young kids. We all know that there's a big difference between what others are doing and what's right? You cannot defend your behavior by saying this is what others are doing. And famously, Jeffrey Lurie has given his head coaches the green light to do what's right, even if you're going to be criticized by the media, by the fans,
there's a great
by
chapter in this book
WIP,
right here
by all
on
the
that
people who
specific
don't
subject.
understand math. And that's the thing. With the way Sirianni approaches this idea, using the analytics department to learn how other coaches made decisions. You know who gets decisions wrong all the time? NFL coaches on 4th down. It's kind of a famous thing that they get it wrong. And you have to get it right so that you have an advantage. And that's kind of supposed to be the point of this organization and Jeffrey Lurie and his analytics and all that. And we won a Super Bowl in the city, like going for it on 4th down. So it's just...
And then the thumbing of the
to me.
nose that... Well, like if you look at the charts, like you can see that it probably recommended to go for it, but my chart said not to go for
His studies and his convictions.
But that's
I want to know, Zach, did you think that, given that press conference was on Wednesday, they played on Monday night, he probably hadn't yet met with Jeffrey this week, right? Did you feel like that press conference was in some way a message to the top?
I mean, I can't imagine that press conference was received well at the top for the reasons that Professor Selman just outlined. And the point that both of you guys made about the other coaches, like this, all these coaches lean on this idea, well, I have to rely on my experience in these situations. That's literally what the numbers are for, is to give you a sense of clarity because your experience could color your thinking, right? And I don't know this for a fact.
Like Nick's example that when he's calling an offense down 6, he thinks there's more pressure.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why.
He's like, as an offensive coach, I know I feel stress in those situations.
That's why you look at objective
how much stress
analysis.
you feel has nothing to do with.
Yeah, exactly.
This has happened like thousands of times in league history, and we know exactly how many times the team scored. Like your emotions as an offensive coach don't matter.
So something I'm speculating here because I have not talked to Nick about this, but I imagine the fact that they missed it earlier in the game was in his head there in this sense, because I don't think he wanted to be calling 2 4th downs in the red zone, missing both of them. And
he called one in the second quarter, and they went for it.
But giving up points.
It's that area around plus 40 where he always
giving up
does,
points in both those situations, and it would be like if I've never coached professional football. I've only coached 7-year-old flag football, right? So I can't put myself in Nick Sirianni's position. I admit that. I played a lot of blackjack in my life, right? If I hit on 16 against if I hit on 16 and I busted against the 10, right? Then in the next time I'm like, well, I don't want to do this twice in back-to-back hands, right? I wouldn't think that. I'm like, you're going based on the odds. And so that's
you
where
gotta be consistent.
Yeah. So that's the part of it that I don't get. But I don't mean to kind of speak for a while here, but you referenced the book. One point that Jeffrey Lurie made in my conversations with him is he talked about in these past 25 years how the proliferation of talk radio has really affected things because it's created like a populist view of football. And what he really wants is an organization that can be insulated from that populist view and that can make decisions soundly and efficiently. And so to answer your initial question in a roundabout way, I can't imagine Jeffrey Lurie took the answer to the chart very well.
And I think what you just touched on is, like, personally, I feel for Nick Sirianni. Like, this, it is a difficult position to be in. He is getting it from both ends, right? On the one hand, you should have taken the points, like, from the concussion uncle side. Exactly. It's like he's too aggressive.
Yeah.
And then from the smarter people, he's getting, you weren't aggressive enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's hard. It seems like a no-win situation. But the truth is, there is only one constituent who matters, and it's Jeffrey Lurie. And I think that he did not do right by Jeffrey Lurie with that decision.
I don't disagree based on what I know of the organization. So that's what surprised me. I thought, frankly, his defense was going to be that, look, I believed in my defense, right?
Like, even aside from just the math of it, like the ancillary things of this game, like, you've got one unit that's good, one unit that's bad. Why don't you just trust the good one?
No,
like,
but I thought,
I believe in my defense makes no sense. I mean,
I thought he was going to get there.
In both cases, the defense is going to go on the field and have to do something. Like,
but I thought that's what he was going to say.
Other than if you go for it and get it, then they don't.
That, by kicking the field goal there, it's a sign of confidence in my defense. I thought he was going to go with that angle, and you can punch holes in that by saying you get 3 yards, you win the game. Like, show confidence in your franchise quarterback, show confidence in your offense, show confidence in your play call or whatever it may be, right? But I was surprised that his answer was, well, you can put this in 20 times, or 20 different websites.
Even more convicted.
Yeah, but I have even more conviction based on my experience and based on the data that he has. And like, I got to imagine, because like Professor Selman's incredibly smart. We know that. The Eagles have incredibly smart people in that building too, who are putting these numbers together.
Yeah, that's the thing that drives me crazy. Yeah. And I thank you to the people in the chat who are like, the Eagles should hire me. The Eagles already have a lot of people there who understand the stuff as well as I do. There are plenty of people there who are telling Nick, like, you have to go for it in the situation. There can't not be. Like, every single calculation in the situation says go for it. So it's a matter of him listening to them. Yeah. Over his emotions and studies of, like, the 2010 Texans tried it, and his convictions. Like, those convictions and studies are fine when you're deciding what video from what movie to show the team or what flower analogy to use or all that. I've defended Sirianni on all those things. I think he got way too much blame for a lot of that kind of stuff. That stuff is fine. Like, if you have the emotional intelligence to relate to the players and you know how to talk to them and all that kind of stuff, that's great. This is just a pure math problem, and you're getting it wrong, and you're trying to defend it with emotions and things like that. And it's just, I mean, I cannot imagine that it flies with Lurie. It's not just Lurie. It's not Lurie telling Zach this behind the scenes. Like, he said this on the record that he will give his coach the opportunity to be right in these situations, and that he will not blame him if it doesn't work out. And it's just shocking to me that Sirianni could not only make this decision in the game, but then 2 full days after the game go on, say those things in a presser.
But the point you made about how a 1-point lead, a 2-point lead, a 4-point lead, a 5-point lead is different than a 3-point lead. Like, Al Cowlby, John Liu, James Gilman, like, they all know this too, right? And so when they're putting this together, like, Zach Drapkin, like they can figure that out as well. So that's the part of it that surprises me.
All right. Well, before we get going with more on the PHLY podcast presented by Bet365, we take a minute to talk to you about our friends at Game Time. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Use the app for really anything. last-minute tickets. They've even got tickets to the Mount Joy concert tonight. I hope everybody's going at the Man. And if you haven't got tickets yet, you can go to Game Time. And then on Game Time, you get the super deal. You get the seat views before you buy, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, job loss protection, and more. You can toggle onto that all-in pricing, so you know you're not going to be surprised by those hidden fees at the end. You can see what the view is going to be like from your seats. I mean, there's nothing better than Game Time when you're looking for last-minute tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
This is my first time telling you about Rugged Road. And I bring this up because before I came to PHLY, I wasn't familiar with Rugged Road. And now I'm thrilled that I am. And I want you to be too, because Rugged Road is really dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Their products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the great things about it is the floatability. There's unique features with the Rugged Road coolers and their ability to always float upright so you never lose a drink. That's important to Bo. They have lightweight design, durability and dependability, and versatility. I love versatility, right? It's why Isaiah Simmons is appealing to me. Perfect for
how many snaps has he been playing this year?
I haven't watched much Giants.
Okay. Neither has he.
Perfect for
He's been watching a lot of Giants.
Perfect for a variety of outdoor activities, from fishing and tubing to camping and tailgating. These coolers are designed to meet the needs of every outdoor or sports enthusiast. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroad.outdoors.com and use code PHLY for 10% off.
All right, Deniz. The defense has been bad.
Yeah.
The offense has been pretty good.
Yeah, those 4 categories that I mentioned for the defense: DVOA, EPA per drive, points per drive, and series conversion rate. Defense was bottom 7 in all of them. The offense is top 7 in all of them. 7th by DVOA, 6th by EPA per drive, 5th by points per drive, 3rd in series conversion rate. So the offense.
Now, do they give parades for top 7?
Well, no, but
okay, it's a little bit like the Nick Foles.
It's not like
celebrated
the team,
for having the highest PFF grade.
It's not like the team that won the Super Bowl was first in offensive DVOA or anything like that. I think top 5 for the offense and average.
Look at a banner up here for top 7.
Okay. Here's the thing. This offense was not that bad last year.
Sure.
We thought Kellen Moore was going to come in, make it more interesting, all that. Now, look, there's no A.J. Brown in this game. He was a late scratch. Is that the reason that the pass game wasn't that interesting? I don't know. But the actual performance of the offense in terms of putting points on the board, per drive rates, all that, has been good over these 2 games. Now, are these the 2 best defenses in the league that they played? Probably not. But it hasn't, like, the offense has not been the main issue. And there's there's a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts after the first game, like, is he slow? He can't run, all that kind of stuff. He looked pretty good running in this last game, didn't he? Like, I mean, I
do still think there's a distinction between when he's going downhill versus when he's going laterally. But yes.
No, I agree. And I actually think, like, schematically also, there was a good change this time. Mm-hmm. We saw the quarterback bash counter read play, one of my favorite plays in football. We saw a quarterback draw. We saw a quarterback counter. Things we didn't see in the first game. So those are all designed runs where he can get downhill, as opposed to that zone read where he has to go around the edge. I thought the offensive run game in this game was really good. Like in terms of the schematics. I mean, like, in terms of the performance, it was mostly fine. But we saw a counter with one of the guards and Grant Calcaterra pulling. We saw a wrinkle of that where the Calcaterra went in motion, so he was actually the first guy instead of the second guy. I thought that was a cool wrinkle. We saw a trap. We saw inside zone. We saw same side inside zone, which all the D linemen were going the wrong way because it looked like it was going to be inside zone one way. That play worked as well. There's just a lot of interesting wrinkles in the run game. In the past game, I thought it was kind of the opposite. Right. I mean, like, a lot of those RPO bubbles, we'll get to ineligible man downfield in a second, slant flat, curl flat. Compared to Atlanta's interesting route combinations and things they were doing, I thought it was very vanilla. One of the things is a lot of offense that looks interesting are man beaters, like where you run like a pick or you run mesh to beat man and things like that. And Atlanta didn't play any snaps of man in week 1. And so like, you're not going to have that preparation for man. They didn't play a whole lot of man in this game either. So that could be one of the reasons. The Saints play a lot of man on defense, especially on third down. And so we might see more interesting looking plays on offense to beat that. Also, you hope that the late A.J. Brown scratch was a big part of it. It's like, hey, Britton Covey, suddenly you're going to be A.J. now, and that means we're not going to be able to run like a lot of these plays.
The bull case is like they didn't have enough time to react, which that's not great either. No,
I mean, you'd think you would
this
have,
week at least it would look different.
You'd think with all the time these coaches spend in the offseason that one of the weeks of preparation would involve, what if A.J. Brown goes down in warmups? Like, what do we do? You know what I mean? Like, do we have a package where we feature Dallas Goedert more in that situation or something like that?
And that's to me the most dizzying thing in that game plan was the absence of Goddard. But
and look, I mean, Jahan Dotson is coming in as wide receiver 2. He's running from the outside, basically just clear out routes so much of the game, just over and over and over again. I chart every single, I have my like this big thing flex, here where I'm charting every single play. I'm actually like tracing out all the routes. So this isn't just anecdotal. I like look back and I actually look and count and all that. Jahan Dotson is usually not supposed to get the ball. He's just taking away one of the corners or something like that on a lot of these plays. I mean, his one target was on a bubble screen. I don't know if it's just that he hasn't learned the offense yet or whatever, but you'd like to involve him more, even if he's just the third wide receiver.
I look at it that similar to when Lane Johnson is out, right? And you go to Jack Driscoll or you go to there's such a difference. A.J. Brown's that good, right? And so I agree with both of you, and I think there's a lot of validity to it that it happened late in the week. You should make a better adjustment, but you would imagine they'll be better prepared this week. There's just such a personnel difference or such a talent disparity between A.J. Brown and the next person. I think this validates how important A.J. Brown is to the team. And we talked about how he might be like their best player, the most indispensable player. We're seeing that. We haven't seen, other than the playoff game last year, what this offense looks like without A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is outstanding. Devontae Smith was a really good player as a rookie, too. The offense wasn't good because I think Devontae Smith, when he has the other guy, is a better player.
Devontae Smith has to catch that ball in the end zone on third down. I mean, this, one of the things that you talk about, Saquon dropping the ball, not enough about Devontae dropping the ball. I mean, that's a 4-point difference there. Very different game if he catches that ball. I understand Jesse Bates dislodged it or whatever, but I mean, he has to catch that ball. Like in a game where A.J. Brown's not playing, that was like my heart kind of sank when he dropped that. It was like, that's exactly the kind of play where you look back later and you're like, oh man, that was.
I think it's one of those where Devontae Smith can both be underrated nationally, but also not quite at the level of A.J. Brown. Like not an offense changing specimen, right? In this game, Deniz, given all of that, I mean, do you think the conversation Fran and I were having yesterday about like, let's just lean on the run game, let's kind of go full 2021 second half? You don't like that?
I never like that. No, okay. I mean, lean on the run game. Like if your quarterback is Bryce Young or something, sure. But I mean, if you have a good quarterback,
as if that's the great insult to Bryce Young this week. That's one too far for Bryce Young.
A podcast in Philadelphia. His
hometown.
His team abandoned him after a season.
Not even Dave Canella.
But a podcast in Philadelphia said if Bryce Young's your quarterback, that to me is the ultimate insult.
Yeah, I've never understood the keep them off the field argument. I mean, you can shorten the game a little bit. You could have it be like eight possessions instead of 10 or something. That also means you only get 8 possessions. I mean, and I don't think the Saints, who were the 26th best Super Bowl odds team coming into the year or whatever, is a team that you're gonna be doing that against just because they had 2 good games. Now, in terms of Jalen Hurts, who's not Bryce Young by any means, I thought he was very good in the game. The passing offense in the drop back game was not particularly giving him easy throws. I mean, he's still fourth lowest in expected completion percentage, right? So that chart that we always talk about. In my charting, I saw on his first 15 pure dropbacks, there was a sack and 4 scrambles So he's only throwing the ball on 10 of the first 15 pure dropbacks of the game. You don't love that rate. I mean, you'd want him to have an answer where he would throw the ball. And the offensive line in general was very good. So it's not like he didn't have time to throw. Having said all of that, he's still 5th in the league in EPA per dropback for these over the course of these first 2 games. He's 4th against the blitz, which was a problem we talked about last year. So. I think he's been good. I think he mostly made good decisions. Obviously, the interception at the end was not one of them. In terms of the motion rate, I know there's a lot made of motion rate coming into the year. Last year, the Eagles famously were dead last at 32%. This year, they're 23rd, so not exactly like the highest in the league in motion or anything, but 57%, considerably higher than 32. Though I didn't think that the motion was as obviously useful in this game as it was in week 1.
Yeah, so to kind of take this and look at the Saints game here, one thing that I'm curious both your opinions on is, are we, and I use the we in terms of like the media, the fan base. Oh. French.
Don't get me started on the Eagles' Twitter use of we.
Are we giving the Saints too much credit in the sense that, and this is my point, like it's been a really impressive start. The numbers and the tape
it's been 2 games.
Show that. But I think game flow really matters and really dictates the way things go. They were up, by 27 points at halftime against the Panthers. Yeah. They were up 35-13 at halftime against the Cowboys. And
their average lead per defensive snap is 21.4.
Yeah.
Like the average snap that the defense has taken, they've led by over 21 points.
So, like, I just imagine, like, how does it look if, say, the Eagles win the opening coin toss, they take the ball first, they score, and it affects game flow. I just think game flow matters. And I'm curious to see what this team looks like for the, 27th in the league in Super Bowl odds. What this team looks like if they're playing a close game, if they're playing from behind, if Derek Carr's in a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3rd in defensive DVOA, 4th against the pass, 1st against the rush, 5th in EPA per drive, all that. But like Zach's saying, a lot of that is playing in very friendly situations. So
yeah. And to the point Bo and Fran made yesterday too, the Eagles run the offense has played real well against Dennis Allen's defenses in the past. So something to think about.
Yeah, I think, let's not treat them like a juggernaut. I don't think anybody's worried that like the Saints are even like last year's Niners or something like that. I would say skepticism about this game for me is more Eagles related than, I mean, the Saints, this would literally be the best team of all time. It's a 2-game sample size, right?
But I think about.
But you're right. The flow of this game matters. And like if the Eagles get up, I think they got a good chance.
Like I did not do self-scouting on our Miami shows from last week. Our Miami shows last year, going into this week. I have not watched it, but my point is this:
that would have been an insane thing for you to do this week.
The Eagles were coming
on a
off
short week when you've got all this book stuff.
Yeah, the Eagles were coming off a bad loss and writing for PHLY.com. I want to make that clear. And shows every day.
Right. Insulting people's appearance.
Last year, the Eagles were coming off a bad loss to the Jets. Right, it's their first loss of the season. Bad loss to the Jets. The Dolphins were scorching going into that game, and a lot of the conversation was
how are they going to stop?
How are they going to stop the Dolphins? Right, and the Eagles stopped the Dolphins. And so I'm not trying to talk Eagles fans into like the Eagles were underdogs for a reason. They're playing without AJ Brown. That's a major loss. I'm not as bullish on the Saints as maybe the early numbers would suggest.
I think that's fair. Let's go to the Super Chats. Jalen All Day Sicko Dio Made says, is Goddard playing in the X receiver role? Isn't he closest body type to AJ and a better matchup than other smaller wide receivers?
He's not an X receiver.
Yeah.
That's not his game. He doesn't have that speed, but no, the closest body type would be Johnny Wilson. Exactly. Yeah. Who's also dealing with a hamstring injury.
Yes.
And are hardly any, if any, 3-by-1 where Goddard is the ISO. I mean, when it's 3-by-1, it's almost always he's like number 3 to the 3 side or number 2 to the 3 side. And when it's 2-by-2, he's almost always been the inside guy. So it hasn't really been used in interesting ways in terms of alignment so far this year.
But this was the question with the Jahan Dotson acquisition. In addition to
the whole theory behind it, right?
No, but like that. Yeah, he is an upgrade at third receiver in theory, and he does give you a starting caliber player in theory. But the body type wise, he's different than AJ Brown.
Right. All right. Before we get going, make sure that you like and subscribe. We got to close out. Crystal ball Eagle prediction. What do you got, Zach?
I'm going with the Saints here. I just gave that whole thought.
It's okay.
I do think the Saints are.
Is it 2.5 right now or 3 on Bet365?
Is it 3? I thought it was 3. Okay. But if AJ Brown were playing, I would pick the Eagles to win this game. I think the AJ Brown absence is significant. The Eagles are on a short week. They're on the road. They have all these variables that tell me, like, even though I like the Eagles going into the season against us, I was down on the Saints going into the season. I think the Saints are playing over their heads right now, but without A.J. Brown on a short week, on the road, I got to go with the Saints, but I think it's going to be a close game. I don't have a number for you. I'll have that on PHLY tomorrow. Let's just say, what's the over-under?
Just use your brain instead of leaning on Vegas.
Oh, the over-under is 40.
I
think the over-under is 49.5.
Okay.
So I will go
Both saying you should use your emotions instead of the numbers.
With 25-24.
Okay.
Saints, yes.
Right.
I don't know how they got in 25.
You're playing in the middle. Good for you.
26.
Probably Nick forgets to go for 2 at one point.
Well, no, because the Saints are getting 25 in that situation. So let's go 26-24 Saints.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to make a prediction?
No, but I will say I'm always going to predict a win.
Like an announcer?
No, just some big picture. Just want to step back and Jalen Hurts in games where Jalen Hurts started, the Eagles were 26-3 over a 29-game span. I mentioned that a lot, and it's worth noting that since then the Eagles are 2-7, and I'm not going to talk about how that relates to my appearance on the show, but it might relate to my appearance on the show. And the other thing about coming off of losses in his career, Nick Sirianni coming off of losses is, including playoffs and excluding the COVID game against Dallas, 8-8. After losses, 29-12 in all other games. So,
and that's significantly skewed by the end of last season.
Yes, it's mostly the end of last season, but there were some losing streaks in 2021 as well. So it's not like it's been like a historical record of being able to bounce back and keep the wheels from falling off. Though the most important number might be the jersey analytics. In this game, the Eagles will not be wearing midnight green on white, which is under Sirianni. They've been 13-15 with that combination. They'll be wearing white. And in all other jersey combinations, Nick Sirianni is 24-6, 80% win rate when not wearing the midnight green under Sirianni. So everyone can rest easy.
Well, there you have it. And that'll do it.
And how about your prediction?
Well, you got to tune into the kickoff show.
Oh, fair enough.
To watch that. PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Bet365. We've got you covered with everything you need on game day on Sunday. The kickoff show at 12:30 with Fran Duffy, Jamie Lynch, and myself. We'll have a halftime show as well, and then the post-game show with Vinny Curry joining us, along with Zach Berman from New Orleans. So that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. We will talk to you on Sunday. Enjoy the weekend, and as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.